So, statistically speaking, your daily commute is probably the most dangerous thing you're going to do all day.
Oh, absolutely.
But, if you've been driving anywhere recently, you really don't need the statistics to tell you that. You
Yeah.
just, you kind of know it in your bones.
Yeah, you feel it the second you pull out of the driveway.
Exactly.
Ah.
Because the moment your tires hit that pavement, it's like this invisible social contract we all supposedly sign just totally dissolves.
He really does.
It stops being, basic, predictable transportation.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're navigating this, well, it feels like a high-stakes player versus player survival game
Yeah.
where the rules of physics and common sense are just uh, entirely optional.
Right. And it's a really jarring shift, isn't it? I mean, you go from the safety of your living room straight into an environment where our shared reality is just constantly being fractured.
Yeah.
Fractured by all these individual, totally unpredictable decisions. You're basically forced to operate in a state of high alert just to get from point A to point B.
Which is exactly the reality we are pulling apart today. We've got our hands on this incredible piece of source material for you.
It's a really unique document.
It is. It's a meticulously documented traffic log from a local commuter, and it just covers a few days in July 2026.
Just a few days.
But our mission for this deep dive isn't just to, read through a list of everyday traffic complaints. We want to treat this log like an actual anthropological study.
Right, because there's so much to unpack.
Exactly. We want to decode the lawlessness, the psychology, and the split-second geometry of urban street survival.
And it really is the perfect microcosm for studying human behavior under pressure. Because,
Yeah.
a daily commute is this incredibly fragile ecosystem.
Oh, totally.
You have this baseline trust that people will follow the painted lines, obey the lights, and that trust is just constantly colliding with the absolute unpredictability of human nature.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because this log, it doesn't just detail a few people running red lights.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond that.
Much further, yeah.
It details everything from perfectly synchronized vehicles creating literal moving barricades to these wild MotoGP-style stunts happening right in the middle of dense afternoon traffic.
It's pretty extreme.
So let's just jump right into the physical reality of the road. I want to look at how one single unpredictable variable can completely destroy the flow of an entire street.
Okay, set the scene.
Right, so picture this. It's the thick of the evening rush on July 3rd. Our commuter is on the Acolum Bridge, just cruising comfortably in the clear right lane.
So far, so good. A rare moment of open road.
Exactly. You feel like you've won the lottery, right?
Yeah.
But over in the left lane, there are these three identical auto rickshaws, and they're traveling in this super tight single-file line.
Okay, I can picture that.
Out of nowhere, the middle rickshaw violently pulls to the right to overtake the one in front of it, and it instantly creates this parallel block across both lanes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, forcing our commuter to just slam on the brakes.
Which completely shatters that illusion of a smooth, predictable flow.
But wait, it doesn't even stop there. Just a second later, that exact same rickshaw abruptly swerves again.
You're kidding.
No, it swerves to overtake a fast-moving street motorcycle, a KTM Duke, which was aggressively weaving through the chaos itself.
So now there's a secondary hazard.
Exactly. And this forces a second, even more violent deceleration for our commuter. They realize they're caught in what they call a synchronization trap.
That's a great term for it.
To survive it, they have to aggressively brake, abandon their open lane, and literally hide in the slower left lane behind the chaos just to stay safe.
Right.
It's like playing Tetris, but the blocks just suddenly decide to change direction on their own. Is this just, universally bad driving? Or is there some kind of herd mentality at play when vehicles cluster like this?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying fluid dynamics and really the psychology of that specific cluster.
Okay, how so?
When you have multiple similar vehicles traveling in close proximity like those rickshaws, they don't operate independently anymore. They kind of create a local microclimate of traffic.
Wait, what do you mean by a microclimate? Like they create their own localized weather system of braking?
In a way, yes. The driver in the middle of that pack, they aren't reacting to the open road ahead. They are reacting almost entirely to the bumper immediately in front of them.
Oh, because they can't see past it.
Exactly. They feel boxed in. So when they suddenly break that synchronization to escape the box, they initiate a severe chain reaction.
Right.
It's not like Tetris where you can clearly see the blocks falling and adjust. It's much more like trying to walk swiftly down a crowded hallway where everyone is blindfolded.
That sounds terrifying.
The moment one person trips or suddenly changes direction, the fluid dynamics of the whole crowd instantly collapse into a bottleneck.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
You aren't just reacting to the one rickshaw, you're reacting to the shockwave of panic it sends through everyone else.
Precisely. And look at the counterintuitive move the defensive driver had to make. Your natural instinct, when you want to keep moving, is to stay in the clear lane.
Yeah, of course.
But the defensive survival move was to retreat, to actually move into a slower lane and hide behind the hazard rather than try to outrun it.
Wow.
That requires a real-time, high-level recalculation of risk that we are basically forcing our brains to do constantly on the road.
And speaking of risk recalculation, what happens when you remove visibility from that equation entirely?
That changes everything.
Because the Commuter documented another incident on the same day near the Kin for Film and Video Park that really highlights this. They are navigating what they describe as an elevated F-shaped blind curve near El Nazar's parking space.
A notoriously dangerous piece of infrastructure.
So for you listening, imagine an F-shaped curve where the road juts out sharply like the prongs of a capital letter F.
Right.
It creates these jagged structural blind spots where you literally cannot see the traffic feeding into your lane until you're practically on top of it.
Which is nerve-wracking.
Right. So our Commuter is rounding this apex, assuming the lane is clear, when this commercial delivery truck just darts out from the intersecting road without yielding at all.
Substituting visibility for blind luck.
Totally blind. The truck crosses the solid yellow line, sticking out like 10 degrees into the main lane, completely blocking the path.
Just rolling the dice.
Yeah, it forces everyone to a screeching halt. And then the truck driver just casually drives away.
Unbelievable.
The Commuter notes that a massive T-bone collision was avoided purely by luck. But I mean, why do that? Why would a professional driver gamble their life and everyone else's on a blind curve?
This raises a really important question about a concept called the normalization of deviance.
Normalization of deviance.
Yeah, that delivery driver was essentially playing the lottery. They couldn't see, so they gambled. But why do they gamble? Because of systemic pressures.
It's like trying to make their deliveries on time.
Exactly. Delivery quotas, tight schedules, the constant demand for speed.
But risking a crash seems like it would ruin your schedule a lot more than just, waiting 3 seconds.
Logically, yes, it would. But psychologically, over time, if that driver pulls out blindly 10 times in a row and miraculously doesn't get hit, their brain subconsciously recalibrates its risk assessment.
Oh, I see.
They start believing that intersection is inherently safe to rush through. They fail to recognize that they weren't safe. They were just incredibly lucky 10 times in a row.
Wow.
They let those schedule pressures completely override basic spatial physics.
It's terrifying because, as the Commuter, you're forced to participate in their deadly lottery without ever buying a ticket.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. That normalization of deviance explains why someone takes a risk when they can't see the danger.
Right.
But what happens when visibility is perfect? The infrastructure is clearly marked, there are police officers actively managing the intersection, and the rules are still ignored. Because that requires a totally different psychological leap.
It really does. That's when we stop talking about infrastructure failure and start talking about the psychology of road entitlement.
Yes.
The complete breakdown of the social contract.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on July 6th, the log details an incident at Jackal Junction. Heavily congested, the stop signal is changing, and the traffic police are actively present, right there in the open.
You would assume everyone is on their absolute best behavior.
You really would. Instead, this large luxury SUV, a Mahindra Scorpio, decides they don't want to wait. And this SUV is sporting a prominent doctor or medical emblem on it.
Okay.
The driver intentionally mounts the curb. The left tires are entirely up on the pedestrian footpath, and the right tires are balancing precariously on concrete drain slabs.
Treating a pedestrian walkway as a personal passing lane?
It squeezes past our Commuter's stationary car to bypass the light. And the Commuter noted the clearance between this massive SUV and their side mirror was a terrifying half an inch.
Oh my goodness.
Half an inch. And again, this is happening in full view of the police. Does having a medical emblem or driving an imposing luxury vehicle create some sort of psychological VIP bypass?
It seems like it.
Do they genuinely feel their personal urgency supersedes public safety, even with the cops right there?
Well, it's a textbook example of infrastructure misuse driven by perceived status. A road relies entirely on shared, unspoken agreements.
Right. Green means go, red means stop.
Exactly.
Oh.
A footpath is for vulnerable pedestrians, a road is for heavy machinery. When a driver uses a visual marker, whether that's a medical emblem, a press sticker, or just the sheer intimidating size of a luxury SUV to grant themselves immunity from those rules, they are asserting a dominance hierarchy over the physical environment.
But the police are standing right there. Are they not afraid of a ticket or, I don't know, the embarrassment of being pulled over on a footpath?
When entitlement reaches that level, they often believe the enforcement doesn't apply to them either.
Wow.
Or they calculate that the enforcement is too overwhelmed to stop them. And when enforcement is ignored in plain sight like that, it sends a powerful psychological signal to every other driver in that junction.
That the rules are just arbitrary.
Exactly. It creates a chaotic environment where raw entitlement dictates the flow of traffic rather than the law.
Which perfectly sets the stage for what I think is the most bizarre psychological moment in this entire log.
Let's hear it.
Same day, at the Mudithara NH66 intersection. Our commuter is on a high-speed arterial road. Suddenly, a scooter from Velapalli Lane carrying a rider and a passenger pops out.
Okay.
They cross directly over the high-speed lanes without even pretending to yield. Then they execute a sharp, sudden U-turn directly across our commuter's path.
Forcing a massive emergency maneuver at high speeds.
A completely terrifying emergency brake just to avoid broadsiding them.
Oh.
But here is the craziest part. As this near-fatal mistake is unfolding, the passenger on the back of the scooter locks eyes with our commuter.
Oh.
And they maintain a prolonged, intensely hostile stare-down directly through the windshield throughout the entire maneuver.
Staring down the very person whose life they just endangered.
Yes. Wait, I'm struggling to buy the psychology of this. You are entirely at fault, you nearly caused a catastrophic crash, and your reaction is to aggressively stare down your victim.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
To me, it just looks like sheer audacity and a total lack of empathy. Are we, giving them too much credit by looking for deeper psychological reason here?
I completely understand why it looks like raw audacity. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of human psychology, it's often rooted in a defense mechanism protecting a very fragile ego.
Okay.
What you were describing is a profound example of cognitive dissonance reacting to sudden panic.
Walk me through that. How does panic look like a hostile stare down?
When a person makes an egregious, life-threatening error in public, their brain registers the sudden, intense reality of their own vulnerability and foolishness.
Right.
To admit fault in that split second requires processing immense guilt and fear simultaneously, and that is incredibly painful for the ego.
Yeah, no one wants to feel like the idiot who almost caused a pileup.
Exactly. So to protect itself from that sudden shock, the brain flips the script. It projects the hostility outward. That stare down is a psychological shield. It's a way of silently communicating, I meant to do that, and you are the problem for being in my way. It masks their internal panic with outward aggression, so they don't have to process the fact that they almost just died because of their own stupidity.
That is fascinating. And honestly, a little pathetic when you realize what's actually happening behind that stare.
It really is.
But let's take that thrill-seeking, that danger, and dial it up even further. If we started with the geometry of the road and moved into the psychology of entitlement, now we are crossing the line into outright adrenaline addiction.
The moments where the public road is forcefully repurposed into a private arena.
Exactly. So back on July 6th, on Patour Cemetery Road, our commuter is trailing an auto rickshaw on an elevated, banked, F-shaped curve with chevron signs.
Okay, a tricky curve.
There's a sedan to the right and a scooter trailing nearby. The gap between all these moving vehicles is incredibly narrow.
Not a place for sudden moves.
Out of nowhere, a lightweight, aggressive Yamaha R15 V3 rider comes flying in from behind. This rider decides to treat this public curve like it's a MotoGP track.
Oh boy.
They execute an extreme 45-degree knee-touch banking maneuver, leaning the bike over entirely right through the active curve, threading that impossible gap.
That is incredibly reckless.
They narrowly miss the sedan's bumper and literally airbrush against the handlebar of the adjacent scooter.
Airbrush, meaning they were within millimeters of physical contact at high speeds.
It's like trying to thread a needle, but the needle is moving, you are moving, and if your hand shakes even a fraction of an inch, it's a multi-vehicle catastrophe.
Absolutely.
How does someone's brain justify that mathematical calculation on a public road?
They don't justify it. They bypass the calculation entirely. This is pure thrill-seeking behavior, completely displacing common sense and spatial reality.
Yeah.
But what's really insidious about a stunt like this is a concept we call outsourcing safety.
Outsourcing safety. I love that term. What does that actually look like in practice?
When you perform a high-speed stunt on a shared public road, your survival is no longer dependent on your own skill. You have given up control.
Right, because you're banking on everyone else.
Exactly. You are assuming, you are actively demanding that the sedan driver won't tap their brakes to adjust their speed. You are demanding that the scooter rider won't flinch, panic, or swerve when a roaring motorcycle suddenly appears an inch from their arm.
Wow.
The sport bike rider outsourced their own survival to the reflexes, the calmness, and the predictability of the completely innocent strangers around them.
That is incredibly selfish when you frame it like that. They're essentially borrowing the good driving habits and hyper-awareness of everyone else to fund their own reckless thrill ride.
Exactly. And the terrifying truth is, if anyone else in that equation behaves unexpectedly, if the sedan hits a pothole and swerves, or the scooter rider sneezes, the thrill seeker's quote-unquote skill becomes completely irrelevant.
The crash happens anyway.
And they take innocent people with them.
Which brings us to the inevitable climax of this week-long traffic log. We've talked about near misses and outsourced safety, but what happens when the outsourced safety fails?
Actual contact.
Yes. July 7th, Vancouver Police Station Road. Our commuter is stuck in a tight, slow-moving bottleneck. They are stationary. The spatial clearance on the right is virtually non-existent.
A static, inescapable environment.
Suddenly, a white Maruti Baleno license plate, KL01CA6439, decides it simply cannot wait.
Okay.
The driver tries to force their way through a gap that flat out does not exist. It scrapes past our commuter's car, striking and completely damaging the commuter's right outer rearview mirror.
Like a ship hitting an iceberg.
It's a loud, obvious impact. The commuter leans on the horn, forcing the Baleno to a temporary stop.
So we finally have a moment of direct confrontation. Accountability.
You'd think so. The driver is a middle-aged woman, but instead of acknowledging the impact, instead of rolling down the window to apologize or exchange insurance, she outright refuses to even look at the commuter.
Just ignores it.
She ignores the heavy honking, hits the gas, and immediately flees the scene. She runs away from minor property damage. So what does this all mean? Why do people flee a broken mirror instead of just saying, "I'm so sorry, I totally misjudged the distance"?
This taps into the hit-and-run instinct, which represents the ultimate final erosion of accountability on the road.
How so?
In an environment that already feels chaotic, unregulated, and high stress, like everything we've explored today, people's brains default to a raw, primitive panic response.
It's just fight or flight, and flight wins.
Precisely. Flight mode takes over completely. When the road ceases to be a shared community space governed by mutual respect and rules, it becomes an adversarial arena.
Right.
And in an arena, you don't stop to apologize to your opponent when you bump into them. You escape before they can retaliate.
Wow, so they view everyone as a threat.
Exactly. The driver of that hatchback likely felt that stopping to exchange information was exposing herself to a physical or financial threat rather than just fulfilling a basic, boring civic duty. The community aspect of driving is entirely gone from her mind.
It really paints a grim picture of what we accept as normal every morning. And it leads us directly to the core takeaways from this deep dive.
It does.
The commuter, who meticulously logged all this, came to a very stark conclusion. And honestly, reading through the geometry, the entitlement, and the sheer panic we've discussed today, I have to agree with them.
What was the conclusion?
Defensive driving is no longer just a polite recommendation from your teenage driving instructor. It is a literal survival mechanism.
It is the absolute baseline requirement for navigating modern infrastructure.
Because as we've seen, you simply cannot rely on the painted lines or the traffic lights to keep you safe.
Oh, you really can't.
When turn indicators are ignored, when pedestrian footpaths are treated as VIP passing lanes, and when blind curves are treated like a spin at the roulette wheel, your only defense is maintaining distance, assuming everyone around you is about to do the worst possible thing and staying hyper alert. And as the source material specifically advises, you absolutely need to invest in a good dash cam. Because when the unwritten rule of the road becomes flee the scene, your own word isn't going to be enough.
A dash cam becomes your only objective witness in a reality where subjectivity, panic, and ego basically rule the moment. It doesn't blink, and it doesn't try to protect its ego.
Exactly. It's wild that we need a black box recorder just to go to the grocery store.
It is not. And as we wrap up our analysis of this log, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've established that navigating this daily commute requires the exact same...
That is a deeply unsettling question. I mean, are we snapping at our families or stressing at our desks because our brains still think we're dodging a motorcycle on a blind curve?
It's very possible.
It is definitely something to seriously consider the next time you step out the front door, keys in hand, and log into the daily PvP survival game we call the Commute. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the asphalt jungle. Keep your eyes on the road, trust no one's turn signal, and please stay safe out there.